In the vast stretches of the cosmos, where countless species mingled on the fringes of known space, there lay an enigmatic barrier that few dared to cross. It was not made of laser grids or magnetic fields, but of cultural taboos and unspoken rules. The alien race known as the Aryans commanded respect and fear in equal measure, their striking appearance marked by iridescent scales that shimmered under different lights, and eyes that glowed with the depths of nebulas. Their most distinguishing feature, however, was not their mesmerizing looks, but the strict seclusion of their females. The Aryans had been part of the Galactic Council for centuries, their diplomats always male, articulate, and imposing. Their females, however, were shrouded in mystery, hidden away on their home planet of Aria. Legends spoke of their unparalleled beauty and wisdom, but also of dire consequences that befell any non-Aryan who dared to seek them out. It was said that the Aryan women held abilities that could manipulate the very fabric of reality, weaving thoughts and emotions with a mere glance. Such power was both a myth and a warning. No one dared to get close. Enter Jonathan Kite, a human anthropologist with an insatiable curiosity and a tendency to walk into trouble. Kite had traveled the galaxy, studying alien cultures, but the mystery of the Aryan females intrigued him more than any other. Against the advice of his peers and the regulations of the Galactic Council, Kite set his course for Iria. He believed in understanding and empathy, thinking perhaps where others saw danger, he might find a bridge for interstellar friendship and learning. As his ship approached Aria's atmosphere, the usual channels of communication went silent. Instead, a single transmission pierced the silence, a deep, resonant voice that spoke with a tone of finality. "Turn back, Jonathan Kite. This path leads only to sorrow." But Kite, driven by a mix of defiance and determination, pressed on. Landing on Aria was like stepping into another world. The architecture was a blend of natural and surreal, buildings curved and flowing as if grown from the earth itself. The air was fragrant with exotic scents, and the sounds of an unseen ocean played a haunting melody. But there were no welcoming parties here, no guides or translators, only the palpable presence of unseen watchers. Kite's first encounter came unexpectedly. While wandering through a vibrant market square, trying to appear nonchalant among suspicious glances, he bumped into a cloaked figure. The figure paused, and for a brief moment the cloak slipped, revealing eyes that burned like cool stars. The Aryan woman before him was breathtaking, her features both alien and achingly beautiful. "I am Seraphil," she said, her voice a melody that resonated with Kite's very soul. "You should not have come here, human." "Why?" Kite asked, his voice barely a whisper, captivated by the presence before him. "Because now that you have seen us, they will not let you leave." Seraphil's words were cryptic, yet they carried a weight that Kite could feel pressing against his chest. Her gaze held him in a gentle but firm grasp, not merely looking at him but into him, reading his past regrets and future fears. "You must leave before the High Council finds you here. My people do not take kindly to outsiders, especially those who seek out our most guarded secrets." "But I seek only understanding, to learn and share knowledge," Kite protested, his academic fervor mingling with a rising sense of danger. Seraphil sighed, a sound like the wind passing through chimes. "Then learn quickly, Jonathan Kite, for the path to understanding is perilous, and the cost of knowledge, it can be life itself." As they spoke, shadows moved in the periphery, and Kite realized that his arrival might have sparked more than mere curiosity. It could ignite a conflict that spanned star systems. But as he prepared to follow Seraphil into the depths of Aria's mysteries, he knew one thing. There was no turning back now. Jonathan Kite followed Seraphil through the labyrinthine streets of Aria, each turn taking them deeper into a part of the city that seemed untouched by time or technology. The buildings here were older, their surfaces encrusted with luminescent moss that bathed the alleyways in a ghostly glow. Seraphil moved with a grace that belied urgency, her cloak fluttering silently behind her, as if moving through another dimension of space. "The Aryans you know, the males, are but half of our essence, Seraphel began, her voice a soft murmur meant only for Kite's ears. Our society is dualistic. Males represent our physical strength and diplomatic ambitions, while the females are the custodians of our deeper powers, our spiritual and psionic capabilities. Kite absorbed her words, his mind racing to piece together the cultural puzzle she presented. And it's these powers that the Council fears? Is that why you're hidden away? Seraphel nodded, a flicker of sadness passing over her features. Our abilities can influence emotions, bend perceptions of reality, even alter memories. Such power can be intoxicating, corruptive. Long ago we learned to fear its potential ourselves. Secrecy is not just for others' protection, but our own. Their path eventually led to an ancient structure at the city's edge, overlooking the undulating ocean. The building was a dome, its surface a seamless pattern of scales reflecting the twin moons overhead. This, Kite understood, was no ordinary place. It was a temple, or something akin to it. Inside, the air was thick with aromatic incense, and bioluminescent vines climbed the walls, casting eerie shadows. Figures cloaked like Seraphel moved silently between columns carved with esoteric symbols. Kite felt every gaze upon him, a tangible pressure against his skin. This is the sanctum of reflection, Seraphel explained as they entered a central chamber. The room was dominated by a massive crystalline structure that pulsed with a soft light. It is here that we commune with the essence of Area, where we confront our own natures and learn to control our gifts. Kite watched as Seraphel approached the crystal, her hands raised in a ritualistic gesture. The air vibrated with energy, a hum that seemed to resonate with his own heartbeat. He felt a pull, an inexplicable connection to the crystal, to Seraphel, to Area itself. You must understand, Jonathan, that what you feel now is the barest whisper of our reality, Seraphel said, turning to face him. Her eyes glowed with an inner light, mesmerizing and profound. Many have lost themselves in pursuit of this understanding. Are you prepared for that risk? Kite's resolve hardened. I came for knowledge, Seraphel, whatever it takes. Then follow me into the heart of the sanctum. What lies ahead is a trial, a test of your true intentions. They moved towards a smaller chamber behind the crystal, where the air grew denser, almost palpable. Symbols on the walls here seemed to shift and dance in Kite's peripheral vision, never forming long enough for his mind to grasp. Seraphel stopped before a veil of light that shimmered across the chamber's entrance. Beyond this veil lies the realm of true perception. You will see Area not as your eyes render it, but as it exists in the cosmos. As Kite stepped through the veil, colors exploded around him, reality unwinding and reweaving itself into forms unimaginable. Visions of Area's past, its secrets, its soul, flooded into him, each one a burst of knowledge too vast to contain. As the visions subsided, Kite found himself on the floor, Seraphel kneeling beside him. The world felt different, heavier yet clearer. He looked into Seraphel's eyes, no longer just alien, but kindred. You have seen the heart of Area, Jonathan Kite, Seraphel whispered. With this knowledge, what will you forge? In the quiet aftermath of his initiation, Jonathan Kite grappled with the deluge of alien concepts now seared into his consciousness. The sanctum had not only shown him Area's past, but had intertwined his cognitive processes with a fragment of the planet's living memory. Every breath he took seemed infused with the planet's ancient wisdom and its perpetual struggles. Seraphel watched him with an intensity that suggested she was evaluating the effects of the exposure on his human psyche. Most who witness the heart of Area find themselves overwhelmed. You appear intact. More than that, you seem adaptive, receptive. Kite's mind was indeed racing, connecting dots across cultural and scientific boundaries previously unknown or misunderstood. The experience was transformative, Seraphel. I see now how precariously balanced your powers are, and how critical this balance is to the cosmos. Seraphel nodded, her expression somber. Our powers connect deeply with Area's essence. Misused, they could unravel not just our society, but potentially affect other realms. That is why we must be guardians, not just wielders of these abilities. Kite stood, steadier now, his resolve reforged in the fire of revelation. You've managed to keep this balance for centuries, but how do you ensure it continues? How do you prevent corruption from within? That is the purpose of the sanctum of reflection, she replied, guiding him out of the chamber and back towards the heart of the temple. It is not only a place of learning, but of cleansing. Those who lead must come here to face themselves, to ensure they are free of corruption. It is both trial and sanctuary. As they walked, Kite noticed the subtle nods of respect Seraphil received from others. It was clear she held a significant role in this secretive society. Her next words confirmed his suspicion. I am one of the keepers, charged with maintaining the purity of our ways and teachings. It is a role that demands everything, and it can be isolating. Kite sensed the personal cost in her voice, and wondered at the loneliness such a position might entail. And yet, you risked much to bring me here, an outsider. Why? Seraphil paused, her gaze fixed on the horizon where Iria's twin moons were rising. Because isolation can be a fortress or a prison. We have kept ourselves apart for so long, fearing influence or interference. But perhaps it is time to reconsider that stance. Your presence here, your reactions, they are data points, Jonathan. They suggest that perhaps we can interact more safely than we feared. As night deepened, Kite and Seraphil discussed potential pathways for cautious engagement with the broader galactic community. Kite proposed scholarly exchanges, controlled and ethical studies of psionic abilities, and diplomatic dialogues under strict protocols. Such proposals would require much deliberation, Seraphil cautioned, but I believe it is worth exploring. However, there is a more immediate concern. Your arrival was not unnoticed, and there are elements within our society who view any change as a threat. Kite understood the implication. You mean there are those who would rather see me gone, who might act to preserve the status quo? Exactly, Seraphil affirmed. And while you are under my protection, I cannot guard you every moment. We must be vigilant. Their conversation was interrupted by a sudden piercing alarm echoing through the temple. Seraphil's composure shifted instantaneously. Her entire demeanor became that of a guardian, a defender of her people. An unauthorized entry, she explained, her eyes scanning the surrounding area. Not all are pleased with your presence or with my decisions. Come, we must move quickly. Kite followed as she led him through a series of hidden passageways beneath the temple, the urgency of their escape lending speed to his steps. The temple, a place of profound peace mere hours before, had transformed into a maze of potential danger. As they navigated the dimly lit corridors, Kite realized that the path he had chosen by coming to Area was fraught with far more complexity and peril than he had imagined. Yet, armed with new knowledge and a burgeoning alliance with Seraphil, he felt an uncharacteristic optimism about the challenges ahead. The alarm continued its relentless cry as Seraphil and Jonathan Kite descended deeper into the secretive underbelly of the temple. The corridors they navigated were stark, lined with stone that absorbed sound, making their passage eerily silent aside from the distant siren. We are headed to the safe hold, Seraphil whispered, her voice a blend of urgency and calm. It's a sanctuary built for our protectors during times of crisis. Kite followed closely, noting the strategic turns and the occasional subtle symbols etched into the walls, possibly markers or guides. Who would dare to breach the sanctum? He asked, his mind racing through possible scenarios involving internal factions or external threats. It's likely the dissenters, Seraphil replied, her tone tinged with frustration. A faction within our ranks who believe that contact with other species, any change to our seclusion, is a contamination of our purity. As they continued, Kite sensed the shift in the air, a coolness that hinted at large open spaces ahead. They emerged into a vast chamber, the safe hold, carved from natural rock and reinforced with Aryan technology. The bioluminescent light cast long shadows, and in the dim illumination he could see figures moving, guards perhaps, or other keepers. We will be safe here for the moment, Seraphil said, gesturing for Kite to follow her to a secluded alcove. She activated a device that projected a holographic display of the temple above them, blinking dots indicating movement throughout the building. "See here." She pointed to a cluster of dots on one wing of the temple. "These are likely our intruders. The security systems have isolated them, but they are dangerously close to the central archives, a repository of not just our history, but our deepest secrets." Kite watched, impressed by the sophistication of the Irian defenses, yet aware of the danger. "What's their endgame? To take you out of power?" "Possibly," she admitted, her eyes narrowing in thought. "Or to enforce a stricter regime that would completely forbid any external contact. They believe that even discussing openness is a corruption of our essence." A sudden shift in the hologram caught their attention. The intruder dots were moving rapidly towards the heart of the temple. "They're making a push for the central chamber," Seraphel said, turning to Kite. "I must stop them before they compromise everything we stand for." Kite felt a surge of protectiveness. "Let me help. I may not understand all your technologies, but I'm not without skills." Seraphil considered him for a moment, her decision weighing the risk against the potential advantage. "Very well, but stay close and follow my lead." Together they left the safety of the alcove, heading back into the network of tunnels that would take them to the central chamber. As they moved, Seraphel briefed Kite on the basic mechanics of the Aryan defense systems, how to activate barriers, use the environment to their advantage, and disrupt enemy communications. As they approached the contested area, the sounds of confrontation grew louder, a mix of shouts and the distinctive hum of Aryan energy weapons. They rounded a corner and found themselves behind a group of dissenters who were attempting to breach a security barrier. "Use this," Seraphel handed Kite a small device. "It's a disruptor. It will temporarily disable their tech." Kite nodded, understanding the importance of timing and precision. He waited until they were distracted, then activated the device. The effect was immediate. The dissenters' equipment fizzled, their attention snapping towards the sudden vulnerability. Seraphil leapt into action, her movements a blur as she engaged the intruders with a combination of martial prowess and psionic assaults. Kite followed, more clumsily but effectively, using his training in terrestrial combat techniques to disarm and disable. The skirmish was intense but brief. The dissenters, caught off guard by the unexpected resistance and the failure of their equipment, were quickly subdued. Seraphel, with Kite's help, secured the area, ensuring no data had been compromised. Breathing heavily, Kite looked at Seraphel, admiration mixing with concern. "What now? Will they just keep coming?" "They might," she said, securing the last of the intruders with energy cuffs. "But we've shown that we can defend ourselves, and perhaps more importantly, that change doesn't necessarily mean weakness. We'll need to prepare, to argue our case before the Council, to show that engagement with other species can strengthen us, not diminish us." Kite nodded, ready to stand with Seraphel in whatever came next. The battle for the sanctum might have been won, but the war for the soul of Aria was just beginning. The aftermath of the skirmish left the sanctum's atmosphere tense. Jonathan, Kite, and Seraphil made their way toward the council hall, a grand structure at the heart of the temple complex. As they entered, the weight of centuries-old traditions and the looming promise of change hung heavily in the air. Inside, the hall was vast and circular, lined with towering pillars that seemed to reach for the heavens themselves. At the center, a large round table held the Council of Keepers, each member adorned in the traditional garb of their rank, their eyes fixed on Seraphil and Kite as they approached. "Seraphil, Keeper of the Sanctum!" boomed the voice of the High Keeper, his tone resonant, echoing off the stone. "You have brought an outsider into our midst, and turmoil has followed. Explain yourself before this council." Seraphil stood firm, her presence commanding despite the accusatory stares. "Esteemed Keepers, the events that unfolded were a direct result of the fears that cloud our judgment. Jonathan Kite, a scholar of interstellar cultures, has shown nothing but respect and curiosity towards our ways. It is our own that have turned against us, driven by the very isolation we cling to." Murmurs rippled through the chamber as Seraphil continued. "The dissenters attack not because of his presence, but because of what he represents. the possibility of change, of an area not cloistered from the galaxy, but part of its broader narrative. One of the keepers, an elder with a stern countenance, rose to speak. Seraphel, your actions, however noble, have endangered our security. How do you propose we deal with this breach of tradition and the division it has wrought? Kite stepped forward, his voice steady. If I may speak, I come in peace and with deep admiration for your people. I have learned much from Seraphel and your sacred sanctum. Perhaps there is a way to use this knowledge, to show that sharing it under careful guidelines could strengthen, not weaken, your great civilization. The proposal hung in the air, met with skepticism but also a curious intrigue. Seraphel seized the moment to elaborate. We propose a controlled exchange program. Selected scholars from area could venture out to learn about the galaxy, while we host a few selected scholars here under strict oversight. A younger keeper, whose eyes had flickered with interest, leaned forward. And what of the powers that our females wield, the very essence of our seclusion? How do we safeguard against the misuse outside our world? By education and strict protocols, Seraphel responded. We already safeguard our knowledge from misuse internally. We can extend these practices in our exchanges. Moreover, engaging with the galaxy opens up new avenues for understanding threats and developing better protections. The debate waxed and waned like the tide, each keeper weighing in with concerns and considerations. The discussion was intense, reflecting the gravity of the decision before them. It was a pivotal moment, a chance to redefine millennia of isolation. Finally, the High Keeper called for a vote. One by one, the keepers cast their decision, the weight of each vote palpable in the silent hall. The result was a narrow approval, the council visibly divided, but with a majority in favor of cautious engagement. Seraphel's expression was one of relief mixed with resolve, knowing the real work was just beginning. Jonathan Kite, the High Keeper addressed him directly, his voice now softer, imbued with a reluctant respect. You have become a catalyst for change among us. Let us hope that this change will lead to prosperity and not peril. With the council's decision made, plans were set into motion. Kite would assist in establishing the exchange program, his insights invaluable in bridging the cultural and procedural gaps that would inevitably arise. As they left the council hall, the moons of Area cast a serene glow over the temple, the night whispering promises of change. Kite and Seraphel shared a quiet look, a mutual acknowledgement of the challenges ahead, but also of the possibilities that lay in the weaving together of their worlds. The air between them crackled with the excitement of the unknown, and for the first time in a long while, the future of Area seemed not just a path trodden, but a horizon wide and waiting. In the weeks that followed the council's momentous decision, the Temple of Area buzzed with a newfound energy, a mixture of anticipation and apprehension. Jonathan Kite found himself at the center of a whirlwind of planning and diplomacy, working closely with Seraphel to outline the initial phases of the cultural exchange program. Together, they drafted detailed protocols, designed educational syllabi, and established communication channels that would allow both Aryans and visiting scholars to share knowledge while safeguarding sensitive information. The stakes were high and the balance delicate, but the potential for mutual growth spurred them onward. As the launch day of the first exchange approached, Kite could sense the change in the air. The once silent corridors of the temple now echoed with the voices of Aryan scholars eager to venture beyond their world, and a small group of hand-picked galactic academics ready to step onto the enigmatic planet of Area. The first group will be arriving tomorrow, Seraphel informed Kite as they walked through the newly established Interstellar Cultural Center, a place designed to be a meeting ground for all participants in the program. The center was a marvel of Aryan architecture, blending their naturalistic aesthetic with technology from across the stars. Kite nodded, examining the holographic displays that illustrated various aspects of Aryan culture and the scheduled academic sessions. It feels surreal, doesn't it? From confrontation to cooperation in such a short span. It does, Seraphel agreed. her eyes reflecting the ambient light of the displays. But there is wisdom in opening our doors. We stand to gain much from this interaction, as do they. The next day dawned with a flurry of activity. The first delegation of galactic scholars arrived, their ships touching down on Iria's soil under the watchful eyes of the planet's guardians. Kite was there to greet them, his role as an intermediary now more crucial than ever. The scholars, a diverse group from various corners of the galaxy, looked around with wide-eyed wonder as they were escorted through the cultural center. Their awe and respect for the Irian way of life were palpable, each eager to learn and share in equal measure. "This is an historic moment," Kite told the group during their welcome meeting. "You are among the first non-Irians to set foot on this planet for a purpose other than diplomacy in over a millennium. Let's make sure it's not the last." The program kicked off with lectures on Aryan history, their unique form of governance, and discussions on the ethical use of their psionic abilities. In turn, the visiting scholars presented their own fields of study, ranging from astrophysics to comparative cultural theories, which intrigued their Aryan counterparts. As the days turned into weeks, the initial hesitation gave way to a robust exchange of ideas and insights. Friendships were forged across species lines, and collaborative projects began to take shape, exploring everything from the shared genetic legacies hidden in the galaxy's vast array to the philosophical implications of psionic abilities on societal norms. Seraphel and Kite often met to discuss the progress of the program, their conversations lingering on the broader impacts of their work. "We are not just sharing knowledge, Jonathan," Seraphel reflected one evening as they watched a sunset tint the sky in hues of gold and purple. "We are weaving a tapestry of interstellar understanding, one that could one day encompass the entire galaxy." Kite smiled, his gaze on the horizon. "And to think, it all started with a forbidden step." As the program established its rhythm, Kite began to realize that his time on Iria was drawing to a close. His role as a catalyst had been fulfilled, and it was time for him to return to his own travels, his own studies. On his last night on Iria, Seraphel took him to the cliff overlooking the ocean, where they had first spoken in earnest. "Your journey continues, Jonathan, but you will always be part of Iria now." Kite looked out over the water, feeling the weight and warmth of his experiences. "And Iria will always be a part of me. Thank you, Seraphel, for trusting in the possibility of change." They stood together in silence, the stars above them a testament to the vast possibilities of the universe. With a final look at the night sky, Jonathan Kite prepared to depart, his spirit enriched, his mind alight with the boundless potential of the cosmos. The horizon called, and he was ready to answer.